Hey, Brian and Kevin with the Nova Hoopcast. We're here today at Centreville High School, home of the Wildcats. Hey, earlier today we had an opportunity to speak to Coach Kevin Harris a little bit about the Centreville basketball program. So let's start off and take a look at that. Buster, go ahead and roll that tape for us.
Welcome to the Nova Hoopcast. This week we're here at Centreville High School. Thanks to Kevin Harris, coach at Centreville, for hosting us. I'm here with both Kevins. Hey, Kevin, you guys are off to a 2-2 start. I want to ask you about those first two games, West Potomac and Lake Braddock. You know, right out of the gate, two teams that play with great pace and score the basketball. What were those games like?
Very fast-paced, our first two games. Two home games for us, so that was good for our young group. West Potomac came at us hard. Back and forth game, they ended up pulling it out in overtime.
A lot of scores, Quentin James for Lake Braddock, Daryl Mackey and Bryce Douglas. Really an opportunity to see probably three of the elite scorers in Fairfax in those two games.
And I told our guys that, you know, we're being tested right out of the gate. Two of the best scorers and two of the better teams in our area.
Coach, tell us a little bit about your team this year.
We're bringing back 4 players from last year's varsity team. We're a young group. We play 4 sophomores, a freshman. Bryce Douglas is a senior this year. We have a transfer, Tayshawn Hogan from Herndon. But we're, you know, a young but experienced group. Connor Shands picked up a pace for us, starting this year for us. And Lance Douglas is also bringing defensive intensity to the game.
Coach, we've talked about transfers on this broadcast before and how in every sport nowadays transfers seem to play a big role. You've got several of them. You mentioned Tayshawn Hogan from Herndon, but you've got two guys that have come home, as Kevin likes to say, and as Wendell Bird, you know, once said back in the day. And Bryce Douglas came back from Bishop Ireton after his freshman year, and Chris Kuzemka is here with you this year from PVI. Maybe talk a little bit about kind of the landscape of transfers in high school basketball.
And Chris is a big transfer for us. He starts the point guard spot, and just the transfers over the past few years, you can see it in Westfield with Tyler Scanlon. They won the state championship. Woodson won the state championship with the transfer, and also last year, Coach Mike over at South County with Quentin, and he came from O'Connell. And the transfer landscape here, I mean, Centreville, we get kids back from PVI or wherever else, and we welcome them with open arms. I mean, like you said, you're coming home, play for the community team, and they're great players.
How does that work within the team? Is it tough to get them back into the fold, or is it spend on the kid, or how does that work?
I think a lot of times our kids do a good job of bringing them into the fold, and it starts in the preseason with our workouts, and they get to know them as a kid, and then on the court once the season starts as a player.
Coach, I want to ask you, you're basketball 24/7, not only with Centreville basketball, but with your own family. And I know you have a son who's in 7th grade now, plays in PYBL and all the AAU circuit. You must never take a day off from basketball. Talk a little bit about what's that like for you from a coaching standpoint, and also going through it in your own family.
Well, in our family, we're basketball 24/7. If we're not here at Centreville, we're at team takeover practice or a tournament. Last weekend, we're at Made Hoops in Hampton. My younger son plays for Slam City, so we're literally in the gym every day, and my wife and I are constantly on the road, going across the bridge to practice and games.
Right.
You mentioned your wife, Roxy, who I know. I was Roxy's guidance counselor in high school, and I know she was a basketball player. I want to ask you a personal question. Who's harder, Roxy or you as coach? Who's harder on them? Because she was hard. She was a tough player.
She's a tough player. She's tough on our kids. I mean, but at the same time, we have that balance where we try to not be too hard on them at the same time, and she's always going to be mom to them. So At the end of the day, she can be hard on them for basketball, but you know, they'll get ice cream and cake when they get home.
Right.
And it's nice to know that Roxy turned out okay after surviving years of Coach Weeren.
I was
a
a big part of her life. I don't know if you knew that. Clearly was a role model, but I'm very happy for Kevin and his family, and they are basketball all the time. We get to see them all over the place for AAU. So it's a small basketball community coming full circle, being here with Kevin and knowing Roxy as a student in high school. It's pretty cool.
Right.
The connections that you have.
Right. Hey, let's wrap it up with another look at Centreville basketball. So you guys are 2-2. A couple more regular season games before you head into the holiday tournaments. What do you see in the next couple weeks going forward?
The next couple weeks we have McLean on Tuesday, Jefferson on Friday, and Stonebridge on Saturday this week. It's a big week for our kids. We talk about having 3 games in a week, less time to prepare. The Friday to Saturday back-to-back is going to be tough for our guys, both games on the road. So, you know, it's going to test our group early on.
And if you're looking for a good game, I would say that Centreville at Stonebridge next Saturday would be a great game to watch. A lot of scoring. We know a lot about Stonebridge. They like to shoot the ball, and if they're going, it'll be a good test for you guys. So a good game to watch for.
Coach Kevin Harris from Centreville High School done a great job with the program here. Thanks so much for letting us come out and film today.
Anytime.
Appreciate
Anytime.
it. All right, man.
Anytime.
Okay, good stuff from Coach Kevin Harris. He's really done a nice job with the Centreville program. We're sitting here where Bryce Douglas scores a lot of points right here on this court. Let's take a look back at some of the great games from last week. I'll start off, Kevin. You can chime in when you want to. Hayfield South Lakes, always a great matchup. You know, they've faced each other many times over the years in playoff scenarios, and both have rich traditions. Hayfield comes out on top this time, 67-59. Mike Joyner led them with 18. I think we talked about him last week as one of the top scorers in the region.
Definitely.
West Potomac and Lake Braddock face off, and we certainly mentioned that last week.
That was our big Monday game.
Right. If you're a fan of scoring the basketball, that's one to watch. So West Potomac comes out on top 94-84. Daryl Mackey, I don't know that we'll top this stat line all year. 43 points and 19 rebounds. I do think I said last week, watch for Mackey to go for 40. When you play Lake Braddock, you're going to have an opportunity to score so many possessions and the style of play that they like.
I think Coach Meachers from Lake Braddock will agree. He knows that people are going to score a lot against him, and Daryl Mackey took advantage of that, going for 43, which is the most anyone scored in our area right now. We've got some people getting close, but the 19 rebounds that go along with that is pretty impressive.
Yeah, there's so many possessions and so many shots go up. There's so many opportunities. One other game I want to highlight from Monday, Kevin, is Parkview with a 58-53 win over James Wood. And Parkview really has a rich tradition in athletics. You know, they've probably fallen on hard times a little bit in the sports world recently, so nice to see them. I think they're a little bit better this year than they've been in the past, so they come out with a nice win over James Wood. I know you took a look at some of the games from Tuesday.
Tuesday, I had the opportunity to go to Rockridge to watch Riverside play Rockridge, and we've talked about Alex Fitch as being one of the better players in Loudoun County, and he proved it that night. He finished with 38 points. Was on fire. The game went to overtime. He was hitting shots from 30 with hands in his face, and really showed that he's one of the premier shooters and scorers in Loudoun, if not in the whole area. That ended up being a 80-71 win for Rockridge and OT.
Yeah, Kevin, speaking about that win, we've talked a lot about Loudoun over the years, Potomac Falls and Loudoun Valley, and we'll talk about their game later on, but I'm wondering if Rockridge has an opening there to maybe be, are they the best team in Loudoun County? Time will tell.
They could be. You know, we haven't gotten through the whole week, but they ended up getting a big win over Stonebridge and 3 or 4 overtimes. So they are definitely, I think Loudoun is wide open. I think the Potomac District's wide open. I think the Dulles District's wide open. There's nobody who's clear-cut favorite in either one of those districts.
Other games from Tuesday?
Well, I think a very intriguing game. We talked last week about inter-county games, and Patriot had a chance to play Freedom South Riding. Freedom South Riding's got a strong team this year. That ended up being a victory for the Pioneers of Patriot High School. But South Riding challenging themselves early. Devon Parrish, one of the better players in Prince William, had a really good night with 19. So a good test for both teams early on. Loudoun County High School was led in a win over Tuscarora, team you saw play over at the Red Jenkins tip-off tournament, by Joe Alexander. He had 29 points, and from what I heard in the game, had 3-point after 3-point shot in multiple possessions. I think it might have been like 6-7 trips down the floor in a row. He hit 3-pointers, but he finished with 29 points.
Coach's son, right? We should dig into that topic a little bit later.
Definitely. Coach Mark Alexander's son, Joe, a senior there, doing well. Other games moving into Fairfax County, Woodson playing Westfield. I don't know if Westfield's is missing any football players. Typically, that's an interesting problem or dilemma for a basketball coach at a perennial football powerhouse like Westfield. How many kids are you missing every year? How does that change? And now Westfield's always good in football, so I'm sure coaches used to that, but that's a problem they have to deal with every year. But Woodson looking strong, beating Westfield 60-47. And then the last game, TC Williams. We haven't talked a whole lot about TC. We know they have a good new coach in Daryl Prue, but they win 66-64 against a good Oakton team that we've talked about before.
Right. Let's move to Wednesday night. A few games on Wednesday. Yorktown with a 61-46 victory over Edison. Ryan Van Kirk for Yorktown drops 30. He's only 5'9", but he's putting up big numbers for the Yorktown Patriots. We had a rivalry game in Madison-Marshall. Madison comes out on top 58-53. Marshall, I think they'll get it together sooner or later. We've talked about Daniel Deaver, one of the best big men in the area. They're off to a little bit of a slow start. And again, that's a great rivalry game, and Madison comes out on top. And then last, South Lakes over Battlefield. Again, inter-county matchup, 52-44 victory for South Lakes. Cameron Savage with 20 points in that one. So a few good games on Wednesday night. Let's move to some Friday night action.
Friday night, probably the most intriguing game of the night was the 106-80 win by Lake Braddock over Hayfield. Lake Braddock likes to score points, going over 100. 6 players in double figures for Lake Braddock, led by Quentin James, who had 17, and they had 14 threes in the game.
Right.
So they're on fire, and that's, when you shoot threes, when you go up and down the floor like that, and you're fun to watch, and it looked like a really good night for Lake Braddock.
Yeah, Kevin, I think they live and die by the three-pointer, and I think there's going to be some games where Quentin James has 30 points, but I think when they're really tough is when they have games like this, when they have, 6 guys in double figures. Then how do you defend them? Yeah.
Huge. And Loudoun County had a chance to watch Potomac Falls host Loudoun Valley, 2 of the best teams in Loudoun County historically. The game was really dominated by Potomac Falls. Valley's lost a number of players from their team. They're good teams they've had the last couple of years, but Ian Anderson looking good. Coach Landon Hawes, another coach's son. Coach Hawes' son, who's a junior, playing well. Also his older son, Hayden Hawes, had a really good game. But always a good atmosphere to watch games in, and that was a 20-point win for Potomac Falls. Rockridge, we mentioned them earlier, having a good game against Riverside on Tuesday. Rockridge winning against Stonebridge in a 3 overtime game.
Right.
Evan Buckley finished with 30. He's back healthy now, so that was another good game. And then we're here in Centreville, so it's appropriate that we mention Centreville beating a good Colonial Forge team and Bryce Douglas going for 34.
Yeah, 74-71 victory for the Wildcats, and again, Bryce Douglas, no stranger to people that watch Northern Virginia basketball. He's been doing it for a number of years. So there was some great action last week. Kevin, we always like to stir it up on Twitter. We had a Twitter poll. I think you're our director of social media. I think
I'm the director of catching flack and people getting upset with us. So let's start with Prince William. The thing about Prince William, and I've always said I really like Prince William fans, because when you do a Twitter poll like this, you take, you don't want to put all 3 polls up the same day.
Right.
So I started off with the Fairfax poll, and Fairfax fans jumped on it really, really fast. And then the second day was Loudoun County. So I put the Prince William poll on last. But the way that they voted was, over 400 people voted.
Right.
And they jumped all over it.
Yeah.
Because they're good fans.
Right.
And we host, Brian and I host the Nova Challenge, which is an all-star game in April. And we're always impressed with not only Prince William players, but their fans as well. So they jumped all over the poll. Some people weren't happy with us. The 4 people, you can only put 4 people on Twitter in a poll, and we put Devon Parrish from Patriot, Stacy Terry from Battlefield, Ethan Wilson, who's had a bomb week last week for Osborne Park. And then I was struggling a little bit because Osborne is 7-0, and they've got several good players. So I said any starter on Osborne. Well, who I probably forgot, and people let me know about this, is Isaiah Folks, who's a dynamic player from Stonewall Jackson. So that being said, Devon Parrish did get the most votes, 53% of the votes, but it's tight there, a lot of good players, so, we're stirring it up a little bit.
So our poll was for the best scorer in each county. Not necessarily the best player, but the best scorer.
And it was, who do you think? It could change. I said, who do you think is going to be the best scorer? So, a lot of people have comments and opinions, which is what we want. We want people paying attention.
Right. Let's jump down to Fairfax. Obviously, we've talked about Daryl Mackey a lot, and he put up 43 in that game earlier this week. So he was on there. Jaquan Johnson-Terry from T.C. Williams. I saw him play last year. He can put the ball in the basket.
His Twitter handle? I forget. He's got a good one.
Oh, I can't. Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah.
He's
right. Got a good one.
Then we had Bryce Douglas from right here at Centreville. He's been scoring for several years. Quentin James from Lake Braddock. Obviously, their style of play. gives him opportunities to score a lot.
We left somebody out.
We did leave somebody out, and I think he should have been on there. I don't know how he slipped through the cracks.
Yeah, that was my fault. You emailed me later in the day and saying you forgot Cam Savage from South Lake. So apologies to Cam Savage. But again, I can only put 4 on there, but well-deserving, and with a big county like Fairfax, somebody's going to get left out, but great player.
So I think we had a landslide. Daryl Mackey wins that poll with 63%.
When you put up 43,
right.
You know, and the highlights of his dunks this year have been amazing. So
so the timing of the poll the week that he puts up 43, I think obviously gave him a great edge. Now let's jump over to Loudon and have that poll
go. Well, speaking of timing of the poll, our winner for top scorer in Loudon was Alex Fitch, and he went for 38 on Tuesday and was on fire, and he won with 35% of the vote. But very close behind Alex was Ian Anderson with 30%. Evan Buckley had 22%. He's been hurt a little bit, but he put up 30 the other night, again against Rock Ridge.
Right.
And then Tyler Savage, a very athletic player for Champ that does a nice job, not only on the basketball court, but on the football field as well. So Alex Fitch was our winner in Loudon.
Right. Well, more polls to come. Obviously, we can do polls on best team, polls on best shooter. I think we did best shooter last year.
We also did best place to play, like best home court advantage, which is always fun. A lot of people tend to have strong opinions on that as well, but it's all in good fun. We're just trying to promote basketball, get people talking. We're definitely not knocking 17-year-old high school kids who are giving their best effort, but we're just trying to have people think about fun stuff.
We may have done best rivalries. I can't remember, but if we haven't, we should do that one as well. So thanks for participating in the Twitter poll. More to come on that. Kevin, let's dig into a topic we touched on a little bit earlier, is just father-son combinations, coach and playing, because we've got a number of them this year, and I'll mention them and maybe get some thoughts from you. But out at Potomac Falls, Jeff Hall's longtime coach there. Both of his sons are playing for him now. In fact, they've got a little video around that topic. You can probably find that on social media.
House of Haws.
Yeah, House of Haws. We've got Trent Dawson at Loudon Valley playing for his dad. Chad is the successful coach there at Valley. Joe Alexander at Loudoun County playing for his dad, Mark. So we've got a lot of it going on in Loudon this year. And also here in Fairfax, we've got Derek Smith playing at Chantilly for his son, Jim Smith, again, one of the longest tenured coaches in the area. Any thoughts about the father-son dynamic?
One we did forget, Keith Henry
right.
At Potomac has coached a number of his sons.
Right.
So and truth be told, we've coached our own children. My son is a junior now at Riverside. I don't coach him, but I have coached him in the past. Brian was on staff here at Centreville, coaching his son, who's since graduated. So there's been a lot of experience on our part on dealing with, and I will say, and I saw Potomac Falls play Loudoun Valley, and there's good and bad. There's pros and cons. I mean, you get to share some experiences with your kids that you will never forget, but you also deal with, some probably questions about who's playing, how long they're playing, how good they are, or, it's the low-hanging fruit, I think, for people who don't know the situation. It's, his dad's the coach. So, it'd be very interesting to talk to some of these coaches of the highs and lows that they deal with.
Yeah, and I did watch that House of Haws video, and Jeff's kids were able to articulate that pretty well. You're right. There's a lot of pressure on a coach's son. And again, did you only make the team because of your dad? You only play because of your dad? And props to those kids. They seem to be handling it well. But you're right. From a family standpoint, nothing better for a coach who spent years in gyms without his own kids to be able to go through it with his kids actually on the team is a really special experience. So really happy for those guys that they have the opportunity to do that. And
but back to the negative side, it's not always great. It is people questioning you and your calls, and it starts when you coach when you're little. You're running plays for him. You're playing him more, and sometimes your kid's good,
right.
And sometimes they're not. But in the case of the coaches you mentioned, they're all very good players, and they're all impact players. But it's a tough situation that we've been through, and we joke all the time. We'll probably be happier when our kids are done with done with sports, because there is that added pressure as a coach that someone always thinks that they're getting preferential treatment. And for me, I run basketball camps in the summer, and it was me telling my son at a very young age, don't expect to get any awards at camp unless you earn them. You know, if you are the free throw champion, well, you've earned that. But don't look to be getting the camper of the week or the best defensive player, because that's just not going to be the way we do things. Now, some people believe in that philosophy, some people don't. And it's sometimes unfair to the kid. You know, maybe your kid is the best player. Maybe they are the MVP. But if they get named MVP, there's always going to be some people who say, well, you know why I got that, when it may or may not be the truth.
Right. So certainly an interesting dynamic, interesting experience for those kids and their families, and seems to be a lot of it going on in the area this year, especially in Loudoun County. So again, each week we'll try to kind of delve into some different topics and obviously highlight all the great basketball that's going on in this area. So it was another great week of basketball. We're really thankful to Coach Kevin Harris for having us here at Centreville High School.
One quick thing about Kevin, they are playing you'll see in the interview, they're playing a big game at Stonebridge. So if you're in Loudoun, or if it's a Saturday night game, which is a little bit different, if you have the time, I would head over and watch Coach Harris. He does a great job. He's got a talented team, and that Stonebridge team is fun to watch.
So we've got a little more regular season play before we head into holiday tournaments. We'll certainly talk about those holiday tournaments as we come up here in the next week or two. So for today, that's it for this week's edition of the Nova Hoopcast. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Centreville High School.